There is a deeper truth behind why this person fell in love with you, something that goes beyond surface-level attraction or simple circumstance, and what is beginning to be revealed now is that their feelings were shaped by a series of moments, emotions, and realizations that gradually built into something they could not ignore, even if they did not fully understand it at the time. Because when someone falls in love in a way that feels real and lasting, it is rarely because of just one thing. It is because of a combination of how you made them feel, how you connected with them, and how your presence fit into their life in a way that felt natural and meaningful. Before we dive into today's word, I want to thank our coffee partners. We are currently working toward a $120 goal to keep this ministry running and improve our quality. If this channel has been a blessing to you, please check the link in the description or comment box to support. Now, let's get into today's devotion. And this is where everything begins to come into focus, because you are starting to see that what they felt for you was not random or accidental. It was something that developed through consistency, through the way you showed up, through the way you interacted with them, and through the way your energy aligned with theirs in a way that created a sense of comfort and familiarity that they may not have experienced before. And as this realization deepens, you may begin to understand that one of the strongest reasons they fell for you was the way you made them feel seen without judgment, the way you listened, the way you responded, the way you allowed them to be themselves without feeling like they needed to change or hide parts of who they were. And this kind of emotional safety is something that is not easily found, and when someone experiences it, it leaves a lasting impression, because it creates a space where they feel understood on a deeper level, not just for what they show on the surface, but for who they are beneath it. And this is what made your connection stand out to them, because it was not based on appearances or expectations, it was based on something real, something that allowed them to feel comfortable in a way that felt both new and familiar at the same time. And as this comfort grew, so did their emotional attachment, because when someone feels safe and understood, it naturally creates a sense of connection that deepens over time, and this is where their feelings began to shift from simple interest into something more meaningful, something that carried emotional weight, something that stayed with them even when you were not around. And as this continued, they may have started to notice that their thoughts were returning to you more often, not in a way that felt forced, but in a way that felt natural, as if their mind was drawn to the feeling they experienced when they were with you. And this is where love often begins to take shape, not as a sudden realization, but as a gradual awareness that someone has become important in a way that is difficult to explain. And as this awareness grew within them, they may have also begun to notice the difference between how they felt with you and how they felt in other situations, how conversations with you felt more meaningful, how time spent with you felt more engaging, how your presence created a sense of ease that was not easily replicated elsewhere. And this comparison is what often brings clarity to feelings, because it allows someone to recognize that what they are experiencing is not something they feel with everyone, it is something specific, something unique to the connection they have with a particular person. And as they began to recognize this, it likely created a deeper sense of emotional attachment, because they were no longer just enjoying your presence, they were beginning to understand its significance. And this understanding is what often transforms feelings into something more defined, something that moves beyond attraction into emotional connection. And as this emotional connection continued to grow, it may have been influenced by the way you expressed yourself, the way you communicated, the way you shared your thoughts and feelings in a way that felt genuine and unfiltered, because authenticity has a powerful effect on people, especially when it is consistent, because it creates trust. It creates a sense of reliability, and it allows someone to feel That what they are experiencing is real rather than temporary or uncertain, and this authenticity is something that likely stood out to them, because it gave them a sense of stability in the connection, a feeling that what they were experiencing with you was not something they needed to question or doubt, but something they could trust and rely on, and as this trust developed, it likely allowed them to open up more, to share more of themselves, to become more emotionally invested in the connection, and this investment is what often deepens feelings, because the more someone allows themselves to be seen and understood, the more meaningful the connection becomes, and as this process continued, they may have reached a point where their feelings were no longer something they could ignore or dismiss, but something they had to acknowledge, something that had become part of their emotional experience in a way that felt significant and real, and even if they did not fully understand it at the time, even if they did not express it clearly or act on it immediately, that does not change the depth of what they felt, because love does not always appear in a way that is obvious or easy to define. Sometimes it develops quietly, gradually, through moments and feelings that build over time until they become something undeniable, and this is what is being revealed to you now. That their love for you was not based on a single moment or a simple reason, but on a series of experiences and emotions that came together to create something meaningful, something that left a lasting impression on them, something that shaped how they saw you and how they felt about the connection, and as you begin to understand this more clearly, you may also begin to see how your own presence, your own authenticity, and your own way of connecting played a role in creating that experience for them, and this is what makes the realization so important, because it is not just about understanding why they fell in love with you, but about recognizing the qualities within yourself that made that connection possible, the qualities that created a space where something real could develop, and as this awareness continues to unfold, it may begin to shift how you see the connection, how you understand its significance, and how you move forward with the knowledge that what they felt for you was not something random, but something that was shaped by the way you made them feel, the way you connected with them, and the way your presence became something meaningful in their life in a way that they could not easily replace or forget. To keep this content free and consistent, I'm looking for 24 friends to gift just $5 each to help hit our monthly goal of $120. Your generosity allows me to focus on the message while you help provide the means. God bless your giving. As this understanding continues to unfold, it becomes clearer that their feelings for you were not only shaped by how you made them feel in your presence, but also by how you remained with them even in your absence, because one of the most powerful signs of love is not just the connection that exists when two people are together, but the way one person continues to live in the thoughts, emotions, and inner world of the other long after moments have passed, and this is where their feelings for you began to deepen in a way that went beyond what they could easily explain, because they may have found themselves thinking about you unexpectedly, remembering small details, replaying conversations, and holding on to moments that seemed simple at the time but carried a feeling they could not quite let go of, and this is what often happens when someone falls in love in a genuine way. Because the connection does not stay confined to physical presence, it becomes something internal, something that continues to exist within them regardless of time or distance, and as this continued for them, they may have begun to notice that their thoughts about you were not fading as they might have expected, but instead becoming more consistent, more emotionally connected, and more meaningful, and this persistence is what often transforms attraction into something deeper, because when someone realizes that their feelings are not temporary, that they do not disappear with time or distraction, it forces them to acknowledge that what they are experiencing is real, and as this awareness began to take shape within them, they may have also started to notice how different their connection with you felt compared to others, not necessarily in a dramatic or obvious way at first, but in subtle ways that became more noticeable over time, such as how conversations with you felt more engaging, how your presence felt more comfortable, how your absence felt more noticeable, and this contrast is what often brings clarity to emotions, because it allows someone to see that what they feel is not something they experience with everyone, but something specific to one person, and as this realization grew stronger, it likely created a deeper emotional attachment, because they were no longer just enjoying your presence, they were beginning to miss it, to value it, to recognize its importance in a way that made it stand out from everything else in their life, and this is where their feelings began to take on a sense of significance, because once someone recognizes that another person holds a unique place in their emotional world, it becomes difficult to ignore or dismiss that connection, and as this continued, they may have also become more aware of how you influenced their emotional state, how your presence could shift their mood, how your words could stay with them, how your energy could affect them in ways that felt both comforting and meaningful, and this influence is what often deepens love, because it creates a connection that is not just based on interaction, but on impact, on the way one person's presence continues to affect another even when they are not physically together, and as they became more aware of this, they may have started to understand that what they felt for you was not something casual or temporary, but something that had depth, something that had meaning, something that had the potential to become an important part of their life, and this understanding is what often leads to a deeper emotional investment, because once someone recognizes the significance of a connection, they begin to see it as something worth holding on to, something worth understanding, something worth exploring further, and at the same time, part of what made them fall in love with you was not just how you made them feel, but how you showed up consistently as yourself, the way you expressed your thoughts, your emotions, your perspective without trying to be something you were not, and this authenticity is what created a sense of trust within them, because it allowed them to feel that what they were experiencing with you was real, that it was not based on illusion or pretense, but on something genuine, and this sense of realness is what makes a connection stand out, because it creates a foundation that feels stable, something that does not require constant questioning or doubt. And as this trust developed, it likely allowed them to open up more, to become more emotionally present, to share parts of themselves that they may not have easily shared with others, and this level of openness is what often strengthens emotional bonds, because it creates a sense of vulnerability that deepens connection, and as they allowed themselves to be more open with you, they may have also begun to see how you responded, how you held space for them, how you engaged with their thoughts and emotions in a way that felt understanding rather than judgmental, and this response is what reinforces trust, because it shows that the connection is not one-sided, but mutual, something that both people contribute to in a way that feels balanced and meaningful, and as this mutual connection continued to grow, it likely created a sense of emotional security, a feeling that what they were experiencing with you was something they could rely on, something that felt consistent in a way that was comforting, and this sense of security is one of the key reasons people fall in love, because it allows them to feel safe within the connection, safe to be themselves, safe to express what they feel, safe to allow the relationship to develop without fear of instability or uncertainty, and as all of these elements came together, the emotional presence you created, the consistency of your authenticity, the depth of your connection, and the impact you had on their inner world. They formed something that went beyond simple attraction, something that developed into love, not because of one single reason, but because of the combination of everything you brought into their life, everything you made them feel, and everything that continued to stay with them even when you were not there, and this is what is being revealed to you now, that their love for you was not something that happened by chance, but something that grew through experience, through connection, through the way you showed up and the way they responded to that presence. And as you begin to understand this more clearly, it may also help you see the connection in a new way, not as something uncertain or confusing, but as something that had depth, something that carried meaning, something that reflected both what they felt for you and what you naturally brought into their life in a way that made that love possible. As this deeper truth continues to reveal itself to you, it becomes even clearer that their love was not only shaped by what you did or how you interacted with them, but by something more subtle and powerful. The way your presence fit into their life at a time when they needed it most, even if they were not fully aware of that need themselves, because sometimes love does not begin with recognition, it begins with resonance, with a feeling that something about a person just feels right, feels familiar, feels like it belongs in a way that cannot be easily explained, and this is what they experienced with you. A sense that being around you brought a kind of emotional alignment that they had not felt before, something that made their world feel a little clearer, a little more balanced, even if they could not immediately identify why. And as this feeling continued to grow, it likely created a sense of comfort within them, not just in your presence, but in the idea of you, in the thought of you, in the way you became part of their internal world. Something they could return to mentally and emotionally when they needed a sense of grounding, and this is one of the deeper reasons they fell in love with you, because you became more than just a person they interacted with. You became a feeling, a sense of emotional familiarity that they could not easily replace, and as this connection continued to develop, they may have begun to notice that your presence had a way of influencing their perspective, the way you saw things, the way you expressed your thoughts, the way you approached situations may have opened their mind in ways that felt new, ways that allowed them to see beyond their usual patterns of thinking. And this influence is something that often deepens emotional connection, because when someone feels that another person adds value to their perspective, it creates a sense of appreciation that goes beyond surface-level interaction. It becomes something that feels meaningful, something that contributes to their personal growth, and as they began to recognize this, it likely created a deeper level of respect for you. Not just for who you were on the surface, but for the way you thought, the way you felt, and the way you moved through the world. And respect is a powerful foundation for love, because it allows admiration to grow in a way that feels genuine and lasting, and as this admiration developed, it likely intertwined with the emotional connection they were already experiencing, creating a feeling that was both strong and steady, something that did not depend on constant excitement or intensity, but on a consistent sense of appreciation and understanding. And as this continued, they may have also begun to notice how your presence affected their emotional state in subtle ways, how being around you made them feel more at ease, how your words stayed with them longer than others, how your reactions carried a weight that felt different, and this kind of emotional impact is what often transforms a connection into something deeper, because it shows that the bond is not just external, but internal, something that influences how a person feels even when they are alone. And as they became more aware of this, it likely created a sense of attachment that felt natural rather than forced, something that developed gradually through repeated experiences, through moments that built upon each other until they formed something meaningful, and at the same time, part of what made them fall in love with you was the way you reflected a certain truth back to them. Something about your presence may have allowed them to see parts of themselves more clearly, whether it was their emotional depth, their vulnerability, or even their capacity to feel something real, and this reflection is something that can be deeply impactful, because it creates a connection that feels both external and internal at the same time, as if the relationship is not just about the other person, but about what they awaken within you, and as this continued to unfold, they may have found themselves becoming more emotionally aware, more connected to their own feelings, more willing to acknowledge what they were experiencing rather than dismissing it. And this process of becoming more aware is often what leads someone to realize that what they feel is not temporary or casual, but something that carries depth, something that has meaning, and as they reached this level of awareness, it likely became more difficult for them to ignore their feelings for you, because once someone recognizes that a connection has influenced them in such a significant way, it becomes something that demands acknowledgement, something that cannot simply be set aside. And even if they struggled with expressing it or fully understanding it at the time, that does not change the fact that what they felt was real, because love does not always appear in a way that is clear or easy to define from the beginning. Sometimes it develops quietly, through layers of experience and understanding that take time to fully come into focus, and this is what is being revealed to you now. That their love for you was not based on a single reason or a single moment, but on a series of experiences that allowed them to feel something deeper, something that connected to who they are on a level that went beyond surface interaction, and as you begin to understand this more clearly, you may also begin to see how your own presence, your own authenticity, and your own way of engaging with the world played a role in creating that connection, how the way you showed up allowed them to feel something they may not have expected, something that stayed with them, something that became part of their emotional experience in a way that was meaningful, and this is what makes this realization so important, because it is not just about understanding why they fell in love with you, but about recognizing the qualities within yourself that made that possible, the qualities that created a space where something real could grow, and as this awareness continues to unfold, it may begin to shift how you see the connection, how you understand its significance, and how you move forward with the knowledge that what they felt for you was not something random or temporary, but something that was shaped by the way you made them feel, the way you influenced their perspective, and the way your presence became something meaningful in their life in a way that they could not easily forget. As this deeper understanding continues to unfold, it becomes even more evident that their love for you was not just about how you made them feel in isolated moments, but about the consistency of that feeling over time, the way your presence created a pattern of emotional safety and familiarity that gradually became something they relied on, something that felt steady in a world that may not have always been that way for them. And this is one of the most powerful reasons someone falls in love. Not because of intensity alone, but because of consistency, because when a person repeatedly experiences a sense of comfort, understanding, and emotional ease with someone, it begins to build trust, and trust is what allows love to take root in a way that feels secure rather than uncertain, and as this pattern continued between you, They may have begun to realize that your presence was not something unpredictable or inconsistent, but something they could depend on, something that felt stable in a way that made them feel more grounded within themselves, and this grounding is what often deepens emotional connection, because it allows someone to feel safe enough to open up, to be vulnerable, to share parts of themselves that they may not easily share with others, and as they allowed themselves to become more open with you, they may have noticed how you responded, how you held space for them, how you listened, how you engaged with their thoughts and emotions in a way that felt genuine and understanding, and this response is what reinforces emotional safety, because it shows that the connection is not one-sided, but mutual, something that both people contribute to in a way that feels balanced and meaningful, and as this mutual understanding continued to grow, it likely created a sense of emotional closeness that felt natural rather than forced, something that developed through shared moments, through conversations, through the simple act of being present with each other in a way that felt real, and this closeness is what often transforms connection into love, because it creates a bond that is not just based on attraction, but on shared experience, on the feeling of being understood and accepted, and as this bond strengthened, they may have begun to notice that your presence had a lasting impact on them, not just during the moments you were together, but afterward as well, how your words stayed with them, how your energy lingered, how the way you made them feel did not fade quickly but remained with them in a way that felt meaningful, and this lasting impact is what often deepens love, because it shows that the connection is not confined to specific moments, but exists in a continuous way, something that becomes part of a person's emotional experience even when they are alone, and as they became more aware of this, they may have started to realize that what they felt for you was not something temporary, but something that had depth, something that had consistency, something that had the potential to be significant in their life, and this realization is what often marks the shift from simple emotional connection into love, because it involves recognition, the understanding that what they are feeling is not something they can easily replace or replicate with someone else, and as this understanding continued to grow, they may have also begun to notice how you influenced their sense of self, how being around you allowed them to feel more comfortable in their own identity, how your acceptance and understanding gave them the freedom to express themselves without fear of judgment, and this kind of influence is deeply powerful, because it creates a connection that is not just about interaction, but about personal growth, about becoming more aware of oneself through the presence of another, and as they experienced this with you, it likely created a deeper level of emotional attachment, because it made the connection feel meaningful on multiple levels, not just emotionally, but personally, and as all of these elements came together, the consistency of your presence, the emotional safety you created, the mutual understanding you shared, and the way you influenced their sense of self. They formed a foundation for love that was built on something real, something that developed over time rather than appearing suddenly, and this is what is being revealed to you now, that their love for you was not based on a single moment or a single reason, but on a series of experiences that allowed them to feel something deeper, something that grew through consistency, through connection, and through the way you showed up in their life in a way that felt meaningful and genuine, and as you begin to understand this more clearly, you may also begin to see how your own presence, your own authenticity, and your own way of engaging with others played a role in creating that experience, how the way you interacted with them allowed something real to develop, something that left a lasting impression, something that became part of their emotional world in a way that was not easily forgotten. And this is what makes this realization so important, because it is not just about understanding why they fell in love with you, but about recognizing the qualities within yourself that made that possible, the qualities that created a space where love could grow, and as this awareness continues to unfold, it may begin to shift how you see yourself, how you understand your own ability to connect with others, and how you move forward with the knowledge that what you bring into a connection has the power to create something meaningful, something lasting, something that can deeply impact another person in a way that goes beyond what is immediately visible, and this understanding is what allows you to see the connection not just as something that happened, but as something that reflects both the depth of their feelings and the authenticity of who you are, something that carries meaning not just for them, but for you as well as you continue to move forward with greater awareness of the impact you have and the connections you are capable of creating. As this deeper truth continues to unfold, it becomes increasingly clear that their love for you was not just built on what you gave to them emotionally, but also on what they discovered within themselves because of you. Because one of the most powerful aspects of love is not only how someone makes us feel, but how they help us see parts of ourselves that we may not have fully recognized before. And this is where your impact on them became something far greater than a simple connection, because your presence did not just create comfort or understanding, it created awareness within them, a sense of emotional awakening that allowed them to experience themselves in a new and more honest way, and this is something that stays with a person, because when someone feels that another person has helped them grow, helped them understand themselves more deeply, or helped them access emotions they may have kept hidden, it creates a bond. As this understanding continues to deepen, it becomes even clearer that their love for you was not only shaped by how you made them feel or how you connected with them, but also by the way you remained consistent in who you were, the way your presence did not shift or change depending on circumstances. And this consistency is something that often goes unnoticed at first but becomes one of the strongest foundations for real love over time, because when someone experiences another person who shows up in a steady, authentic, and reliable way, it creates a sense of trust that goes beyond words, a feeling that what they are experiencing is not temporary or uncertain, but something they can depend on, and this sense of reliability is what allowed their feelings for you to deepen gradually, because they were not just drawn to moments of connection, they were drawn to the continuity of those moments. To the fact that what they felt with you did not disappear or change unpredictably, but remained present in a way that felt stable, and as this stability continued to shape their experience, they may have begun to notice that your presence had a grounding effect on them, that being around you or even thinking about you brought a sense of emotional balance, something that helped them feel more centered, more at ease. And this kind of emotional grounding is something that becomes deeply meaningful over time, because it creates a connection that is not just about excitement or intensity, but about comfort and peace, and as they became more aware of this, it likely strengthened their emotional attachment, because they began to associate your presence with a sense of well-being that they valued, something that they did not want to lose. And this is where their feelings began to take on a deeper significance, because they were no longer just enjoying the connection, they were recognizing its importance in their life. And as this recognition grew, they may have also started to notice how your presence influenced their decisions, their thoughts, and their emotional responses, how the way you communicated, the way you approached situations, or even the way you expressed your perspective began to have an impact on how they saw things, and this kind of influence is something that often deepens love, because it creates a connection that goes beyond surface interaction and becomes part of how a person thinks and feels on a deeper level, and as they experienced this with you, it likely created a sense of admiration, a recognition that you brought something valuable into their life, something that contributed to their understanding of themselves and the world around them, and this admiration, combined with the emotional connection they already felt, likely strengthened their feelings even further, because it created a sense of appreciation that was rooted in both emotion and respect. And as this continued, they may have also become more aware of how your presence made them feel about themselves, how being with you allowed them to feel more confident, more accepted, more comfortable in their own identity, and this is one of the most powerful aspects of love, because when someone feels that another person brings out the best in them, it creates a connection that feels meaningful and worth holding on to, and as they recognize this, it likely deepened their emotional investment, because they were not just drawn to you as a person, but to the version of themselves they experienced when they were with you, and this is what often creates a strong emotional bond, because it connects the relationship to a person's sense of self, making it feel important on a level that goes beyond simple interaction, and as all of these elements came together, the consistency of your presence, the emotional grounding you provided, the influence you had on their perspective, and the way you made them feel about themselves. They formed a connection that felt real, something that developed over time in a way that was steady and meaningful rather than sudden or superficial, and this is what is being revealed to you now, that their love for you was not something that appeared out of nowhere, but something that grew through experience, through the way you showed up consistently, through the way you made them feel safe, understood, and valued, and through the way your presence became something that positively influenced their inner world, and as you begin to understand this more clearly, you may also begin to recognize how your own authenticity, your own consistency, and your own way of engaging with others played a role in creating that connection, how the way you remained true to yourself allowed something genuine to develop, something that left a lasting impact, something that became part of their emotional experience in a way that they could not easily forget, and this is what makes this realization so meaningful, because it is not just about understanding why they fell in love with you, but about recognizing the strength of your own presence, the value of your authenticity, and the way your natural way of being has the ability to create deep and meaningful connections, and as this awareness continues to unfold, it may begin to shift how you see yourself, how you understand your ability to connect with others, and how you move forward with a greater sense of confidence in the fact that what you bring into a connection is not only real, but impactful, something that can shape how another person feels, how they see themselves, and how they experience love in a way that goes far beyond what is immediately visible, and this understanding is what allows you to see the connection not just as something that happened, but as something that reflects both the depth of their feelings and the authenticity of who you are, something that carries meaning not just for them, but for you as well as you continue to grow and move forward with a clearer awareness of your own emotional value and the kind of connection you are capable of creating. As this deeper understanding continues to unfold, it begins to reveal something even more meaningful about why this person fell in love with you, something that goes beyond emotional comfort, connection, or consistency, and reaches into the way your presence aligned with something they had been searching for, even if they were not consciously aware of that search, because sometimes love does not begin with intention. It begins with recognition, a quiet sense that something about a person feels right in a way that cannot be easily explained, and this is what they experienced with you, a feeling that your presence filled a space in their life that had been empty or incomplete in ways they may not have fully understood until you came into it, and as this sense of alignment continued to grow, it likely created a feeling of inevitability within them, not in a dramatic or overwhelming way, but in a subtle and steady way that made the connection feel natural, as if it was meant to happen. As if it was something that fit into their life in a way that made sense even if they could not fully articulate why, and this is one of the deeper reasons they fell in love with you, because your presence did not feel forced or out of place. It felt like something that belonged, something that aligned with who they were and what they needed on a level that went beyond surface understanding, and as this feeling of alignment became more apparent, they may have begun to notice how easy it felt to be around you, how conversations flowed without effort, how moments shared with you did not feel strained or complicated, and this ease is something that often becomes a defining factor in love, because when a connection feels natural rather than forced, it creates a sense of comfort that allows emotions to develop without resistance, and as they experience this with you, it likely allowed their feelings to grow without hesitation, because there was no sense of pressure or difficulty that made them question the connection. Instead there was a sense of flow, a feeling that things were unfolding in a way that felt right, and as this continued, they may have also begun to recognize how your presence brought a sense of clarity into their life, not necessarily by solving problems or providing answers, but by creating a space where things felt less complicated, where emotions felt easier to understand, where their thoughts felt more organized and grounded, and this kind of clarity is something that often deepens emotional connection, because it allows a person to feel more at ease within themselves, and when they associate that feeling with another person, it creates a bond that feels meaningful and important, and as they became more aware of this, it likely strengthened their attachment to you, because they began to see your presence as something that contributed positively to their life, something that made them feel more balanced, more aware, more connected to themselves, and this is where love often takes on a deeper significance, because it becomes not just about the other person, but about the impact they have on your inner world, and as this awareness continued to grow, they may have also started to recognize how your presence influenced their sense of possibility, how being around you or thinking about you made them feel more open to experiences, more willing to explore their own emotions, more connected to the idea of what a meaningful connection could look like, and this influence is something that can be incredibly powerful, because it shifts a person's perspective in a way that allows them to see beyond their previous limitations, and when that shift is associated with a specific person, it creates a sense of appreciation and admiration that deepens emotional attachment, and as all of these elements came together, the sense of alignment, the ease of the connection, the clarity you brought into their life, and the way you expanded their perspective, they formed a foundation for love that was built on something real, something that developed naturally rather than being forced or constructed, and this is what is being revealed to you now, that their love for you was not just about individual moments or specific qualities, but about the overall experience of being connected to you, the way your presence fit into their life in a way that felt meaningful, the way it influenced their thoughts and emotions in a positive way, and the way it created a sense of alignment that made the connection feel significant, and as you begin to understand this more clearly, you may also begin to recognize how your own presence, your own authenticity, and your own way of being contributed to this experience, how the way you naturally showed up allowed something genuine to develop, something that felt effortless yet meaningful. Something that left a lasting impression on them in a way that could not easily be replaced, and this is what makes this realization so important, because it is not just about understanding why they fell in love with you, but about recognizing the impact of your presence, the value of your authenticity, and the way your natural way of being has the ability to create connections that feel aligned, meaningful, and real. And as this awareness continues to unfold, it may begin to shift how you see yourself, how you understand your own role in the connection, and how you move forward with a deeper sense of confidence. In the fact that what you bring into a relationship is not something ordinary, but something that has the potential to create a sense of alignment, ease, and emotional depth that can deeply affect another person in a way that goes far beyond what is immediately visible, and this understanding is what allows you to see the connection not just as something that happened, but as something that reflects both the depth of their feelings and the authenticity of who you are, something that carries meaning not just for them, but for you as well as you continue to move forward with a clearer awareness of your own value and the kind of connection you are capable of creating. As everything now comes together into its fullest form of understanding, this is where the deepest truth behind why this person fell in love with you becomes clear in a way that feels both grounding and profound, because what is being revealed is not just a series of reasons or moments, but a complete picture of how your presence affected them on multiple levels. Emotionally, mentally, and even internally in ways they may not have fully understood at the time, and this is what makes their love for you something real and meaningful, because it was not built on surface-level attraction or temporary feelings. It was built on a consistent and evolving experience that allowed them to feel something deeper, something that stayed with them, something that became part of their emotional world in a way that could not easily be replaced. And as this awareness settles in, you may begin to see that one of the most important reasons they fell in love with you was simply because of who you are when you are not trying to be anything else, the natural way you think, the way you express yourself, the way you respond to the world around you without forcing or pretending, and this authenticity is something that carries a quiet power, because it creates a connection that feels real, something that does not need to be questioned or analyzed in order to be understood, and as they experienced this with you, it likely created a sense of certainty within them, a feeling that what they were experiencing was genuine, something they could trust rather than something they needed to doubt, and this trust is what allowed their feelings to deepen in a steady and lasting way, because it removed the uncertainty that often prevents emotional connection from growing fully, and as this trust continued to build, they may have begun to recognize how your presence fit into their life in a way that felt meaningful, not in a way that disrupted or complicated things, but in a way that added something that made their experiences feel richer, their emotions feel clearer, and their sense of connection feel more complete, and this sense of addition is what often makes love feel significant, because it shows that the connection is not just about sharing time or experiences, but about enhancing the way a person feels within themselves and within their life, and as they became more aware of this, it likely created a deeper level of appreciation for you, a recognition that what you brought into their life was not something they experienced with everyone, but something unique, something specific to the connection they had with you, and this uniqueness is what often makes love feel irreplaceable, because it creates a bond that cannot simply be replicated with someone else. And as all of these elements came together, the authenticity you carried, the trust you created, the sense of meaning you added to their life, and the uniqueness of the connection, they formed a love that was built on something real, something that developed over time in a way that felt natural and consistent rather than forced or sudden, and this is what is being revealed to you now, that their love for you was not something accidental or temporary, but something that was shaped by the way you existed in their life, by the way your presence influenced their thoughts and emotions, and by the way the connection felt aligned with something deeper within them. And as you begin to understand this more clearly, you may also begin to recognize how this reflects back on you, how the qualities that drew them to you are part of who you are, part of what you naturally bring into your connections, and this realization is what makes everything come full circle, because it is not just about understanding their feelings, but about understanding your own value, your own ability to create meaningful connections, and your own capacity to be someone who brings clarity, comfort, and authenticity into another person's life. And as this awareness settles fully, it may begin to shift how you see yourself, not through the lens of uncertainty or questioning, but through the lens of recognition, a quiet understanding that what you offer is real, that what you bring into a connection has depth, and that the way you exist has the ability to create something meaningful in the lives of others. And this is what allows you to move forward with a sense of confidence, not because everything is defined or guaranteed, but because you understand the impact of your presence, and as you carry this understanding with you, it becomes something that shapes how you approach future connections, how you see yourself within them, and how you allow yourself to be seen, not with hesitation or doubt, but with a sense of trust in who you are and what you bring. And this is what transforms the entire experience into something lasting, something that continues to influence your path in a meaningful way, because it has revealed not only why they fell in love with you, but also the deeper truth of what makes you capable of creating that kind of love in the first place, something that is not dependent on circumstance, but rooted in the authenticity, presence, and emotional depth that you naturally carry within you.